Have you ever paused before speaking, worried your honest opinion might sound too direct? In today's episode of English in Moments, Elena invites you into a masterclass on the quiet power behind truly natural English, expressing opinions politely. Why do a few tiny words, could, might, would, change the entire mood of a conversation? How can one respectful sentence turn conflict into collaboration? From soft openings, it seems to me, to graceful disagreement, and from tone and timing to body language, we'll reveal the hidden levers persuasive speakers use every day. Ready to sound confident, kind, and compelling without being blunt? Let's step inside. Idea 1. Why politeness matters in English communication. When we think about fluency in English, most learners imagine having a wide vocabulary, speaking quickly, or sounding like a native. But the real secret is deeper than speed or word count. It's about how people feel when they listen to you. Politeness is not just decoration in English communication. It is the bridge that allows your ideas to be heard, respected, and accepted. Imagine this. You have a brilliant idea in a meeting, but the way you share it sounds too blunt. Instead of listening, your colleagues might feel uncomfortable, defensive, or even offended. The idea itself might be excellent, but the delivery can completely block its impact. This is why mastering polite expression is just as important as grammar and vocabulary. Politeness in English goes far beyond simply being nice. In many English-speaking cultures, politeness reflects social awareness, respect for others, and emotional intelligence. For example, saying, "Give me a coffee" is grammatically correct. But in most situations, it sounds abrupt, even rude. A small change like, "Could I have a coffee, please?" transforms the same request into something soft, respectful, and pleasant. These subtle shifts matter because they signal to others that you value their role and feelings. You are not just speaking English words, you are building relationships through language. Even more interesting is the way politeness changes depending on context. In emergencies, direct language is necessary. Shouting, "Call an ambulance," is the right choice. It is fast, clear, and life-saving. Among close friends, directness can even feel natural and intimate. But in professional, academic, or new social settings, politeness softens the conversation and avoids unnecessary conflict. This flexibility, the ability to judge when and to be direct and when to be soft, is what separates basic English speakers from confident, advanced communicators. Another reason politeness matters so much is the way it affects trust. People naturally listen more carefully to someone who speaks with respect. When you use softening words like could, might, or perhaps, you invite others to consider your point instead of forcing it on them. This makes your listener more open-minded, even if they initially disagree. Over time, this respectful communication builds stronger relationships. Whether you are at work, at school, or even just chatting socially, being polite makes others more likely to collaborate with you and take your ideas seriously. And here's the hidden bonus. Politeness actually boosts your own confidence. Many learners hesitate to share their opinions because they are afraid of sounding rude or blunt. But when you know exactly how to soften your message, you feel secure. You know you can share your thoughts without causing offense. This confidence frees you to participate more actively, to express yourself clearly, and to engage in real conversations without holding back. So, before we even dive into the specific strategies, remember this. Politeness is not optional in English. It is essential. It turns ordinary words into powerful tools for connection. It helps you express yourself with clarity and kindness at the same time. And ultimately, it makes your English not only accurate, but impactful and memorable. Idea 2. Gentle ways to introduce your opinion. Now that we understand why politeness is such a powerful force in English communication, the next step is learning how to actually put it into practice. One of the most effective skills you can develop is the ability to gently introduce your opinions. Too often, English learners make the mistake of stating their ideas as if they were absolute facts. For example, they might say, "This is the best way," or "That plan will never work." While these sentences may feel strong and clear, in many contexts, they can sound rigid or confrontational. What if instead of sounding like a final judgment, your words sounded like an open invitation to dialogue? That is the secret of polite opinion sharing. English offers a wide range of softening expressions that allow you to present your view without forcing it on others. Simple phrases such as "I think," "I believe," or "in my opinion" may seem small, but they completely transform the tone of what follows. Compare, "This movie is boring" versus "I think this movie is a little boring." The second version communicates the same thought, but leaves space for others to disagree without tension. It's no longer an attack on the film or on someone who enjoyed it. It's simply your perspective. For slightly more formal situations, perhaps a work presentation or an academic discussion, phrases like "from my perspective" or "it seems to me that" are excellent. They signal that what you're about to say is one viewpoint, not the ultimate truth. This keeps the conversation open and inclusive. Imagine being in a meeting where a colleague suggests a new marketing strategy. Instead of bluntly declaring, "That strategy is weak," you could say, "From my perspective, the strategy shows promise, but it might need more testing." Instantly, you have shifted from potential conflict to constructive collaboration. Another subtle but powerful tool is the use of tentative expressions. "It strikes me that," "It appears that," or "I would say that." These phrases not only soften your statement, but also add a thoughtful, reflective quality to your speech. For example, "It strikes me that the team might be overwhelmed right now" sounds far more empathetic and professional than "the team is overwhelmed." The first version acknowledges the complexity of the situation while still communicating your concern. And let's not forget informal conversations. When you're with friends or family, you can relax a little more and use phrases like "I guess" or "if you ask me." These expressions make your opinions sound casual and approachable, fitting naturally into friendly dialogue. Saying, "If you ask me, that concert was a bit too long" sounds honest yet lighthearted, inviting others to laugh or agree without tension. The beauty of these gentle introductions is that they transform how people respond to you. Instead of feeling judged or contradicted, your listeners feel respected. They are more likely to listen, more willing to share their own thoughts, and more open to building a shared understanding. In other words, the way you introduce your opinion sets the tone for the entire conversation. So, as you continue your English journey, remember this: introducing your ideas politely isn't about being weak or uncertain. It's about being strategic, respectful, and emotionally intelligent. By mastering these subtle openings, you position yourself as someone who communicates with confidence and kindness, qualities that always make your words more powerful and more persuasive. Idea 3: the art of disagreeing politely. If introducing your opinion gently sets the stage for positive conversation, then disagreeing politely is the true test of your communication skills. After all, anyone can sound polite when everyone agrees. The challenge arises when your view is different from someone else's. How do you share your disagreement without sounding rude, dismissive, or confrontational? The answer lies in a simple but powerful principle: acknowledge before you oppose. Think about it. When someone has just shared their idea, they want to feel heard. If your immediate response is, "That's wrong," or "That won't work," you risk shutting them down completely. Even if you are correct, the delivery damages trust and creates tension. Instead, begin by recognizing the value in their contribution. A simple phrase like, "I understand your point. That's a valid observation," or "I see where you're coming from," shows genuine respect. Then, once you've acknowledged them, you can introduce your own perspective with words such as "however" or "but." For example, instead of saying, "Your plan is unrealistic," you might say, "I understand why you suggest that plan, and it has some interesting advantages. However, I'm not entirely sure it fits our current budget. Notice the difference? The second version respects the person, critiques only the idea, and invites further discussion. Another strategy is to soften disagreement by using tentative language. Expressions such as, I'm not sure I completely agree, I don't entirely see it that way, or the very British, I'm afraid I don't quite agree, turn a potentially harsh contradiction into a balanced response. These phrases imply partial agreement, which makes your words less threatening and easier to accept. For instance, I don't entirely agree with that timeline. Perhaps we should allow for more testing before launching. Here, you are not rejecting the idea outright. You are carefully reshaping it. In professional settings, slightly more formal phrases can help. Statements like, with all due respect, I hold a different view, or I beg to differ on that point, create a polite distance that maintains professionalism, even when opinions clash. Imagine being in a meeting with senior colleagues. With all due respect, I see the customer retention challenge a little differently. I believe we might need to address the service experience first. Such phrasing shows both confidence and tact. One of the most subtle yet effective tools is disagreement through questions. Instead of contradicting directly, you raise a thoughtful inquiry. That's interesting. Have we considered the long-term impact? Or what if we approached it from this angle instead? These questions don't shut down the conversation, they expand it. They invite others to reflect, reconsider, and engage with your viewpoint collaboratively. The key is to always debate the idea, never the person. Avoid saying, you're wrong or you don't understand. Instead, focus on the content. I think the data might suggest something different, or I'm concerned this approach could create extra costs. By separating the person from the proposal, you preserve relationships while still making your point clear. Polite disagreement is not weakness, it is wisdom. It shows that you can stand by your perspective without creating unnecessary conflict. It allows discussions to stay open, respectful, and productive. And most importantly, it positions you as someone who communicates with maturity, emotional intelligence, and true leadership. Idea 4, the subtle power of softening language. Once you've learned to disagree politely, the next step is to strengthen your toolkit with the language devices that make your English sound respectful, flexible, and persuasive. These are the fine adjustments that turn a blunt statement into a polite suggestion and a sharp disagreement into an open dialogue. At the heart of this toolkit are modal verbs, softening adverbs, and tentative expressions, small words with enormous influence on tone. Let's begin with modal verbs like could, might, may, and would. Imagine telling a colleague, we need to change this plan. Grammatically, it's correct, but it sounds like a command. Now soften it. We could change this plan, or it might be better to try a different approach. The change is dramatic. You're no longer issuing an order, you're inviting collaboration. Similarly, I would suggest we hold off until next week. Feels far more considerate than wait until next week. The modal verbs act like cushions, making your message land more gently. Next are softening adverbs such as slightly, somewhat, a little, just, perhaps, and possibly. These words reduce the force of your statement, making it sound less absolute. For example, the results are inconclusive can sound final and negative. But the results are somewhat inconclusive, or perhaps we need more data, transforms the tone. You are still communicating doubt, but in a way that invites curiosity rather than shutting the door. Even in casual talk, saying that movie was a little slow is kinder than that movie was boring. Tentative language is another subtle but powerful strategy. Expressions like, I tend to think, I'm leaning toward, or it seems to me show that your opinion is thoughtful but flexible. Instead of sounding like you've made an unshakable judgment, you come across as open to dialogue. For instance, I tend to think a phased approach might be safer, suggests careful reasoning, while leaving space for others to weigh in. This flexibility often encourages others to contribute more openly, leading to richer discussions. You can also strengthen your credibility by grounding your views in experience. Phrases such as, from my experience, based on what I've seen, or in my work, I've found that, politely signal that your opinion isn't random, it's supported by real evidence. Imagine saying, "From my experience, starting small often leads to better long term success." The listener immediately senses that your perspective is informed and valuable, yet still politely delivered. The beauty of these softening tools is that they don't weaken your ideas. On the contrary, they make your ideas more persuasive because they sound respectful, considered, and inclusive. They prevent your message from sounding harsh and instead wrap it in diplomacy. The result? People are more willing to listen, more open to dialogue, and more likely to value your contribution. So think of these words as the musical notes of politeness. Just as a melody becomes more beautiful with careful use of rhythm and tone, your English becomes more effective when you consciously add modals, adverbs, and tentative phrases. They transform your language from flat and rigid into something rich, nuanced, and deeply human. Idea 5, beyond words: tone, body language, and daily practice. We've explored how modal verbs, softening adverbs, and tentative phrases can transform your spoken English into something more respectful and persuasive. But politeness is not just about the words you choose, it's equally about how you deliver them. Tone of voice, intonation, facial expressions, and body language all work together to either reinforce your message of respect or completely undermine it. Mastering these nonverbal cues and then practicing them deliberately is the final step toward becoming a truly confident and polite communicator. Let's start with tone of voice. You can say the exact same polite sentence in two very different ways, one calm and friendly, the other harsh and impatient. "I think we might need more time," said warmly conveys thoughtfulness. The same words said sharply sound like criticism. A moderate pace, a steady volume, and a calm rhythm make your words sound sincere and approachable. This doesn't mean speaking without energy. Instead, it means balancing confidence with warmth, ensuring your listener feels respected. Intonation is another subtle but powerful tool. When you ask a question like, "What do you think?" let your voice rise slightly at the end. That rising tone communicates curiosity and openness. When making a statement such as, "I believe this plan will work," let your voice fall gently, signaling confidence without sounding aggressive. And don't forget the power of pauses. A short pause before saying, "However, I see it differently," gives weight to your words, making them sound considered rather than rushed. Body language often speaks louder than words. Open posture, arms uncrossed, shoulders relaxed, signals that you're approachable. Occasional nods while someone else is speaking show you are listening carefully, even if you plan to disagree later. Facial expressions matter too. A soft smile or neutral expression invites collaboration, while frowns, eye rolling, or sighing destroy politeness instantly. Even hand gestures should be open and calm rather than sharp or pointed. These small details add up, shaping how people feel about your presence in a conversation. But knowing all these strategies isn't enough. You need practice to make them natural. One effective method is conscious observation. Watch how native speakers on TV, in movies, or in meetings introduce their opinions, disagree politely, or use tone and body language. Write down useful phrases or gestures. Another technique is role play. Imagine a real-life scenario, a work meeting, a family discussion, or even a debate with a friend. Write out what you'd like to say using polite structures, then speak it aloud. If possible, record yourself and listen critically. Do you sound respectful, confident, approachable? Keeping a politeness journal can also accelerate your growth. After each important conversation, jot down what worked well and what could be improved. Did you soften your language effectively? Did your tone match your intention? Did your body language support your words? Reflection helps transform isolated lessons into long-term habits. Ultimately, politeness in English is not about memorizing fixed formulas. It is about weaving together thoughtful words, respectful tone, and considerate body language into one harmonious style of communication. When you practice regularly, these strategies become second nature. You'll no longer have to pause and think, "How can I sound polite?" because it will flow naturally. And that is the real power of polite English. It doesn't just help you avoid offense, it empowers you to connect deeply. to inspire trust, and to share your ideas with confidence and grace.